Hello and welcome to this latest edition of Bulls on Parade Talk. I am your host, Joshua Sines. Today, as we wrap up the final day of the NFL Scouting Combine, I want to talk to you about somebody that made quite an impression on a few scouts yesterday. And no, it's not Jadeveon Clowney, as you can clearly see from the title of this video. It's not Jadeveon Clowney. It's another guy that the Texans have reported, that has been reported, has met with the Texans. And that is this guy here. That is defensive tackle Aaron Donald, who went to school at the University of Pittsburgh. Now this guy, everyone talks about Jadeveon Clowney and the way that he ran, right? But I look at this kid, and I look at this Pittsburgh Panther, and I read up on him, and I say, wait a minute, why is this kid not talked about as much? And just the fact that the Texans talked to him just makes me go, huh? Could Earl Mitchell and Antonio Smith's days in Houston be numbered? But that's a story for another day. And that's a story for another day. I'm just saying, this kid, just to give you a little brief overview of this guy, Aaron Donald, played for Pittsburgh. And he won the Chuck Bednarik, which is basically Defensive Player of the Year award, Bronco Nagurski Award, Best Defensive Player in college football, and has been told to be one of the more gifted players in this draft. Now you look at the way that he performed at the combine, and I couldn't help but be impressed. And basically, I'm going by my notes that I have down here, and I'll just briefly tell you guys what I saw and what I've been reading and hearing from this kid. I haven't seen his tape yet. I'm in the process of watching his tape at the moment, but I want to give you guys some brief impressions that, certain people are getting from him, and here they are. Number one, he's very strong. He's very strong prospect. On the bench press, notably, he had 35 reps, which is second best at his position. So he's definitely strong. He's very fast. He's got good enough. He's got speed. He ran a 4.68 official on the 40, which is fifth fastest. Of course, Jadeveon Clowney had the 40 that everyone's talking about. He would have liked to have run faster, but I'll get to that another day. There's two things I noticed about him that I'm sure everyone's going to talk about, including myself, but for another reason. And someone else brought this up, but for this reason as well. I'll explain. He's got his arm length is 32 and 5/8 inches, which is, which isn't as what you would expect. He's got short arms. The other thing is his frame. He's 6'1", 285 pounds, so he's undersized. Sort of a small frame, and from what I've been hearing, that small frame really killed him in the run game. Because when he got double teamed, when he got chipped, he really got plowed over. From what I've been hearing, from what I've been reading about him. So, but let's put his measurables aside for a minute and just look at the numbers that he racked up during his career at Pittsburgh. You look at his numbers, and I got them right in front of me. In his career, he had 181 total tackles, 29.5 total sacks, and 66 total for loss, 11 passes defended total, 6 forced fumbles for his career. Now his 2013 season, stats-wise, was quite impressive because he led the nation last year with 28.5 tackles for loss by himself. And he was fourth in the ACC last year with 11 sacks. You know, that sack number was the same number that he had in his 2011 season. But I'm putting the focus on last season where he was fourth in the ACC in sacks. And you look at these numbers, he appeared in about, what's it say here, 51 games. And for an interior lineman, that's not bad. That's pretty darn good. And at the combine, he showed that talent. And I'll get to the scouting report later. Overall, based on the results and based on opinions around the combine and around, basically around Indianapolis. So, like I said, I look at the first thing that comes to mind is when I see his results is Ian Rappaport, who's basically a guy that works for NFL Network. He says, I have his Twitter right here in front of me from yesterday. He posted on Twitter, he said, as impressive as Clowney's 40 was, Pitt D-tackle Aaron Donald's 4.65 at 285 pounds, maybe just as impressive. Lit up at the Senior Bowl, too. That's another thing. He had a very impressive performance at the Senior Bowl. Everyone was raving about this kid. So, I would not be surprised if this kid ends up going high. And I'll get to where one coach really likes him. And I'll get to that. So, a freakish burst, very strong. CBS Sports is ranking him, says second best defensive tackle prospect. And as I mentioned, CBS Sports shares this sentiment as well. His frame is the red flag. But he's very explosive, he's very strong, quick off the ball. If he wins off the snap, basically he wins. So, like I said, and also his short arms could really kill him. Could really kill him, especially in like double teams and run game situations. Even an NFL scout tweeted the other day about Aaron Donald. This is an NFL scout by the name of Matt Miller. I have his Twitter in front of me. He says, I really like Aaron Donald. Might be one of my favorite guys in this year's draft. Underdog in some circles, but he's an ideal 3-tech. And Aaron Donald shared those same words, and I have a quote in front of me about him that I'm gonna share with you guys, and for you listeners on the podcast, you guys, I'll quote it to you guys. But for those that are watching the video, here it is. He was quoted in saying, and I'll read it out. He says, "In college, I played different positions." He said, "I played nose tackle. I played in a 3-man front as a 5-tech. I played 3-tech, so I moved around in college a lot. So being versatile the way I am, I feel like that's a plus for me." So versatility is big for him. Now, there might be some people out there that might be confused in the terminology in this quote and terminology that has been used. If you watch NFL Network, if you watch ESPN, for some people, there might be some confusion about the term, 3 technique, 5 technique, which is something that has been told for a while when you're talking about defensive tackles. And just to briefly educate my viewers and listeners, I'm going to do my best, but I'm going to share with you guys basically what that terminology means. So, here we go. This terminology was introduced by Bear Bryant, and I'm sure a lot of you know who Bear Bryant is, specifically for his career at Bama. But this 3 technique and 5 technique, this is all part of a defensive lineman's numbering system in terms of where you line up on the line of scrimmage when you're going head-to-head with the offensive line. And this numbering system is being used basically all over the place. And it's been used for years and has not changed. And it has not changed. And let me get to that. So, if you go read Bear Bryant's book called Building a Championship Football Team, you will find an initial sketch of that numbering system. But I'm not going to use that one for, for copyright reasons. And plus, I've never read the book, and the book is not mine. I don't have a copy of the book with me, and I'm planning to go find one if I have the chance to. But for you viewers on YouTube, I have a cleaner diagram, because if you look at the one it's literally a sketch. It's literally a sketch, and it's not as clean. But I got one right here for you guys, for you to listen, for you to read, and for you listeners, I'll be sure to check out the video to see the actual sketch. So here it is, guys, and I'm going to go... So here it is, guys, for those that are watching, and I'm going to start from zero. I'm going to start from inside and work outside. So, if you look at this diagram, you notice the way it starts. I'm going to start from the alignment from the center spot. Basically, if you're a zero technique guy, the D lineman lines up right over the center, as you can see. Let's see. Moving outside, the even numbers. If your technique says is even, like a two technique or a 4 technique, you're lined up over the lineman, over the offensive lineman. So if you're a technique, you're right over the guard. If you're a 4 technique, you're over the tackle. If you're a 6 technique, over the tight end. Right? Now, if you're in odd numbers, you can plainly see you're lining up on the D lineman's outside shoulder to get the leverage. So 1 technique, one side of the center. If you're a 3 technique, outside of the guard. If you're a 5 technique, outside of the tackle. And if you line up on the tight end, as it's demonstrated in this graphic, you look at the tight end. You lined up over the tight end, it's a 9. That's why you hear the term wide 9, because you're the widest. You're lined up the widest on the line. So it is a little confusing as to why 7 is on the inside of the tight end and 9 is on the outside. It is somewhat confusing, and it's inside the 6. But believe it or not, no one really knows. I read a quote here from Paul Johnson, who was a head coach at Georgia Tech. He says, I got his quote in front of me. He says, no one knows why that is the case, but Coach Bryant, in terms of Bear Bryant, numbered it that way, and no one has the guts to change it. Now, I'm not going to sit here and suggest that either way. So that is basically, so overall right there, ladies and gentlemen, that is basically what a D lineman's technique is in terms of that terminology. So you read guys, so you look at when people are scouting these guys and classifying these guys, like in a 3-4 front, it's 1 nose tackle and 2 ends. And those defensive ends are usually lined up at the 5, at a 5 technique. It's basically, and in the true 3-4, those D linemen are responsible for 2 gaps in the running play, the A and the B. So, when you hear a scout, like, for example, NFL Network's Mike Mayock says his best fit, for example, is a 5 technique end. So basically, it's a guy that can play. So basically, that kind of fit is around this. He's got to be about 300 pounds. That's basically how Romeo Crennel liked his defensive ends. His defensive ends were like 320 pounds. They got to be strong. They got to play 2 gaps against the run. They got to be intelligent to read what the offense is doing, so they got to be able to read. And they have to be. They don't necessarily have to be athletic, but it's a big bonus. If they're smart, strong, big, and athletic, that is huge. That is huge. And if you look at a 4-3 front, you have 2 tackles and 2 ends. So one defensive tackle is either lined up in a 1 technique. The other one is either in a 3 technique. And the other one's either in a 3 technique. And those guys are more responsible for it. That's more of a pass rush line than a run stopping line. Then usually a 3 technique guy, when you scout him, he's supposedly fast. He's quicker off the ball than a 1 guy, but basically has to deal with double teams more often than anyone else. That's why you see a guy like a J.J. Watt all over the place. But he's mainly lined up at the end. So typically, when you're scouting a 3 technique tackle, he has to be. When you're scouting a 3 technique tackle like Aaron Donald is, you have to look at him like this. You have to say around near or about 300 pounds, physical enough to basically control 1 gap versus the run against either an offensive guard or an offensive tackle. He's got to be quick off the ball. He's got to be able to shoot the gap between the linemen to disrupt the play in the backfield. And he's got to be able to stunt while rushing the passer. So, that's generally that is basically how these scouts, this is basically what they look for when they're scouting these tackles. And this is how they come to the conclusion he's a 3 tech guy. And basically what I just described in terms of a 3 tech guy is exactly what people are saying about Aaron Donald. He's strong, quick off the ball. He's got a high motor. He's very strong, always active. Is a disruptor. Like I said, I have to go back. I have to go and watch his tape. I haven't done that yet. I'm just telling you guys what I've been reading from scouts from yesterday. And one final thing, in conclusion to this, you read these scouting reports. People are comparing this guy to Bengals defensive tackle Geno Atkins. Geno Atkins, he's listed as 6'1", 303 pounds. So he's a perfect 4-3 tackle. He's a perfect 3 technique guy. You look at Geno Atkins, undersized, but is very quick off the ball. He is very, very quick off the ball, and so that's the one thing that he shared that they have that people are pointing to when it comes to Geno Atkins. Now, another report that I'm seeing from Geno Atkins, Geno was drafted in the 4th round. And a lot of people are saying that a guy like him opened the door for Aaron Donald to possibly be taken, like, even in the 1st round. That's how much of an impression this kid is making. This kid has made much of an impression, not just at the Combine, but also at the Senior Bowl. People were really raving about this guy. And Geno Atkins, you look at him from college. He came out of Georgia. He wasn't really a flashy player. His stat line has 11 sacks and 33 tackles for loss in 4 years. He only made the All-SEC team in his sophomore year, which is 2007. So he wasn't really flashy, but at the same time, you look at the success that he's having right now in the league, playing with the Bengals, and you gotta think that he's opened the door for a guy like him. And now the Texans are talking to him? Wow. Another guy that people compare him to that I didn't even know was in the league. I didn't even know who this guy was. is a Tennessee Titans defensive tackle by the name of Jarrell Casey. Now, some of you might not know who he is. I'll give you guys a little brief introduction to him. And I got a quote from his scouting report from NFL.com that I'll show the viewers. That I will show the viewers really quick. But Jarrell Casey, he was described as he's got high motor, very strong, and was also undersized. He was listed at 6'1", 300 pounds with 32-inch arms. 32-inch arms. It's just slightly shorter than Aaron's. He ran a 5.06 at the 5.06 in the 40, 26 reps on the bench, 27 and a half inch vertical, 101 broad jump. So, coming out of Tennessee, he was drafted. He was drafted, I believe, drafted in the 3rd round, and was drafted 77th overall by Tennessee. So, and you look at his scouting report. I'm going to show you guys the scouting report, and for the listeners, I'll quote it. So here's a scouting report from NFL.com when they were looking at this kid. He said, Casey is not the most impressive player on the hoof, but he has the strength and foot quickness to develop into a disruptive force at the next level. His stocky build and lower body strength make him very difficult to move out of holes, and he uses his quick hands to effectively shed blockers. He is not a refined pass rusher, but he has a relentless motor and will become more effective with improved hand placement and technique. He's not athletic enough to be a 3 technique at the next level, but he is a great run stopper and should be an early 2nd day pick. So the one thing I take away from that is he's not athletic enough to be a 3 technique guy. Aaron is. According to what I've been reading, he is an ideal 3 technique guy and is said to have had experience playing the 5. So versatile, high motor, quick off the snap. He's strong, undersized, got short arms, and might get swallowed in the run game potentially. But you look at him, and he's like, and you look at him and you have to wonder. People didn't really look. The one thing about Geno Atkins that people had against him was his size. But you look at something, I got a quote in front of me from Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick, of all people. He said, quote, he'd probably be the first pick in the draft, says of Geno Atkins right now. If Geno Atkins was in this year's draft, he says he might be the first pick. He says the guy can ruin a game by himself. So, Geno was athletic and a sub rusher, like a nickel sub rusher. But looking at the way he plays now, my goodness. He's got a heck of a power game. You look at the way that he just bulldozes off the line and through that center. Man, you talk about a disruptor. That's what a lot of people are saying about Aaron Donald. He has the same kind of disruptive ability. And just to go, I got some notes in front of me about his performance at the Senior Bowl. It says here, he owned the one-on-one pass rush drills against top offensive linemen at the Senior Bowl. It says here his stats. He won 12 out of the 5 one-on-one battles, just like Geno Atkins did in 2010 at his Senior Bowl. He has a variety of moves. He showed he can win with both quickness and power. And, he says he might last long as a role player. But, with those two, he says he could be they said he could be a star at the next level. He's got decent arm and hand length despite his size, and he's very violent with his hands. And he has very fast feet, quick feet. And like I said, and they said that the film backs it up. I get to go look at his film. I need to go back and watch this guy's film because I am very curious, especially seeing that the Texans have talked to him. So, people are saying he would be better in a 4-3 scheme, which again probably qualifies why the Texans talked to him. He said he's a 3 technique guy, more of a 4-3 guy. No wonder the Texans want to talk to him. Romeo Cornell wants to be able to use different kinds of personnel. So, again, Texans talk to him. I'm very excited. I am excited to go back and watch this film later today. I'm sure you all will too. I encourage you guys to go read about this guy, to read his numbers. I personally still would like to see Jadeveon Clowney drafted by Houston, but if not, and I have to go back and watch the tape, but if not, if everything that they're saying about this kid is for real, I really want to see this kid in a Houston uniform. If we don't get Jadeveon Clowney first overall, give me a guy like him. Give me a guy like him. I am very curious to learn more about this kid, and that's what I'm going to do later today. I'm going to watch his tape, and I'm going to see for myself what everyone's been raving about this kid. I am very curious. I'm very excited. Like I said, the first time I did watch him at the Combine, he was quite impressive. I didn't know he would be that impressive. The only thing I hear people talking about on like ESPN is Jadeveon Clowney, which I understand. But I look at Aaron Donald and I think to myself, whoa. And I read his numbers. I read the reports that are coming out about him, the opinions from different scouts, different opinions, especially from Bill Belichick, to a guy like Geno Atkins. And you gotta wonder, man, could he be an ideal fit in Houston, especially considering what we found out about a guy like Earl Mitchell and Antonio Smith, whose days in Houston might be numbered. Think about it. You got to think about this. They might be looking at this kid for a potential player of the future because Antonio Smith and Earl Mitchell's future might not be very long. With the cap situation. And I talked I'm going to talk about, I talked about Antonio Smith's situation in an earlier video. Y'all can go check that out. But I would not at all mind Aaron Donald taken by Houston. So people are saying potentially a bottom of the first round. So if the Texans do decide to go quarterback first round, let's get this kid top of the second if he's still there. I don't think he's going to be there. Based on what everyone's raving about him, I have a feeling he might go in the bottom of the first. So I'm all for it. Hopefully the interview process went well with Aaron Donald. I wish him nothing but the best of luck. And again, you got your pro day ahead of you. The draft is a couple days away. Best of luck to you, young man. Very impressive performance. And I look forward to seeing what you do in the future. So that just about wraps it up here on this edition of Bulls on Parade Talk. Thank you all so very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed, please leave a like on this YouTube video. I'd appreciate it very much. In the comments section below, tell me what you guys think about Aaron Donald. Did you get a chance to watch his combine performance? And if you did, what did you think? Have you had a chance to watch him play in games? What did you think of him in games? What can you tell me that I haven't seen yet? I haven't even gone back to go look. So what can you tell me about him? Tell me in the comments section about what you think about Aaron Donald and his potential future in Houston. Love to hear from you guys. For more Houston Texans coverage provided by yours truly, go ahead and subscribe to this YouTube channel. I'll be here covering all the latest regarding your Houston Texans all year long. And finally, please be sure to check out and follow my Bulls on Parade Talk podcast on TalkShoe.com if you haven't already. The full link to that podcast will be in the description below this video for those that are watching on YouTube. Also, to those that are listening on the podcast, the full link to this YouTube video will be on this episode's info section on the podcast site. Again, if you have any questions, concerns regarding anything, whether it's Texans, YouTube, or podcast related, go ahead and send me a message on TalkShoe or YouTube. I'll do my absolute best to reply as soon as I can. Once again, as always, this is your host, Joshua Signs, signing off.